Hello, this is Dazzling One. Some things that have been on my mind. As far as considering myself a part of a movement or labeling myself, I've come to the conclusion that I prefer not to do either. When I first started out on YouTube, I really didn't have any idea of what I was doing. I was just 19 years old and I wanted to help those who are in spiritual bondage, particularly in the area of night terrors, sleep paralysis, incubus and succubus encounters, and I had a lot of info that I hadn't seen many videos touching on, with ties to Genesis 6 and the Book of Enoch, and I shared it, and the Bible and the Apocrypha were my foundation. I quickly learned that people disagree within a movement. There were people that came against me for using the Apocrypha and called me a false prophet. And while I didn't appreciate it and I was very defensive back then, I learned that just had to let it go, and for those who did not want to hear, they could separate themselves. And I've noticed this trend, it grows, and it's gotten a lot worse with different things such as the flat earth versus a globular earth, or the Hebrew roots movement versus the English name, whether using God and Jesus or Yahweh and Yeshua, or any other variant of his Hebrew name. And I've come to find that while these are interesting issues, just like when people looked into the Mandela effect and there was a lot of tug of war going on there, it's not really about salvation. It's not really life-saving information. And I've called on God, I've called on Jesus, I've called on Yeshua, I've called on Yahweh during an attack, and I've been delivered, and my prayers have been answered. So I don't have a problem with people who use either or, but some people do. I've gotten asked, why do I switch between the two? And the reason is, I don't know who's watching the channel. There could be someone watching the channel who uses the Hebrew name, or someone who prefers the usage of the English name. And also, I get bashed sometimes for that too. There's been people who are like, Yahweh is Satan, which I see the connection to the Saturn research, which I went into and looked into. But even with that, I had to be careful about some of that as well, because a lot of it was just starting to demonize all of the Bible and the following of God, the Most High. And then with those who got frustrated and said, you shouldn't be calling him by a Hebrew name, the Hebrew roots movement is trash, or it's a cult. Any movement can be turned into a cult. I think that most movements start off with the ideology that they want to gain more followers and they want to have more exposure and be understood and recognized. I'm not saying every movement is good in nature, because that's not the case for every movement, but there is a lot of cult mentality that comes out of movements, and that's another reason I don't want to consider myself a quote-unquote truther, which I've learned after looking into Revelation of the Method and how they hide things in plain sight. And some people say, well, if there is a shadow government or a conspiracy, then why would they sprinkle Illuminati over everything in plain sight? I mean, a secret society is secret, and that's true, but it creates a lot of complacent people who don't question anything. And at the end of the day, there is a shadow government controlled by Jesuits, Zionists, Freemasons, really those who worship Lucifer, Satan, and it's described within the word as well. So I do share a lot of the similar beliefs that the truth movement stands for, but I wouldn't consider myself a truther, because like any movement or label, I feel that there's a reason why people are pushed into these labels. It confines them and makes people feel like if they go against any little thing or there's any little disagreement, that there's no leg room. And there's plenty of channels that I don't agree with everything they say, but I still listen to them and I can find useful information from them. It's really not my place or anyone else's place to tell anyone who they should or shouldn't be subscribed to. They have to test the spirits and use discernment is really what it is. And if someone doesn't agree with me and they're going to go off on me and cuss me out over something I said they disagree with, then bye. Because I don't have time for people like that. And I know that not everyone's going to agree with me. That's part of being an adult. There has been a lot of infighting and a lot of skepticism, and I see why that's the case. It feels like every year there's a new scandal, a new development on certain channels, and there's a lot of people I don't trust. I'd like to keep my distance from everyone, whether I like the channel, dislike the channel. I just prefer to stay to myself. It's the safest thing, unless I feel led by the Holy Spirit to reach out, but you won't really see me commenting much on anything or anyone's post. Even on my own channel, I barely write comments back or say much, because oftentimes I don't have a lot to say. or I'm just busy. Even this break, I thought I was going to have a lot more time to get back, apply, and to really do more for the channel. And most of it was absorbed with family stuff and a lot of other things, so I wasn't able to do so. That's part of being busy all the time. And, disagreements are going to happen. And I do think there are a lot of tricksters and shills out there, some of them who are employed by the government to create disinfo, others who are just there for their personal gain, whether it's they need more money or they have thirst for power. And I don't think there's anything wrong with people who monetize or sell things, but I also think that some people, if they want to do that, because I know in the future I'm planning on publishing and then advertising my books, I want to make a separate channel for that and maybe even vlog about it, because I feel like if I'm going to sell you something, you should probably see who I am and what I'm about versus just talking to you and telling you, oh, to do this. But you just have to be mindful of everything, and it's just part of being on the line. Not everybody's going to like the content, and not everybody's going to be approving. We're not all going to agree, but that's the beautiful thing about any relationship, is that everyone has the right to agree to disagree, and we can move on from there, or not, and just cut each other off, either one. But I just want to let you guys know I do pray for you. I do read what you send me, and I apologize for being so bad at replying. And I appreciate all the support that you give the channel all the time, whether it's sharing it, liking it, or watching it. But I hope that you all have a wonderful week, and God bless.